There is one more item that we do want to reference, and that will be at the very end. So basically, we wrote this document. According to the story, it was a dreadfully hot summer, so I mean the people were getting exhausted and tired, and literally what happens is everything was done, it was all written, and all of a sudden someone got up and said, I want to make one change. You know how that goes. Everybody's happy to leave, and the one change was where it says, we the people. And a lot of you are like, what's the big deal? The proposal is, let's change it to we the states. For those of you who I think, like in my little kids class, I might ignore this. You are the big kid class. This is not little. Ladies and gentlemen, that simple word is the difference of, was this government created by the people of the United States, or was this government created by a group of states? You're like, what's the big difference? Is the ultimate purpose of the United States government to serve the citizens or to appease the states? There is a very technical difference. What are you going to notice as our class moves on? We are going to begin to have what are called Federalists and Anti-Federalists. Federalists believe that the government serves the people. Anti-Federalists believe the government serves the states. Up until the Civil War, one of the big divisions in our country is, what is more important? Where does your allegiance lie? Your state or with the federal government? What happens to resolve the issue? Remember what I said, it was all written. People began to fight, and what you want to understand, folks, the issue is state rights versus federal rights. Do we believe government should be run from the federal, the top, or should people's loyalty go to the states? This is a topic, in fact, some people still argue about it today. It is George Washington who stands up and says, we need to proceed. The people are ready for a change. George Washington endorses we the people. And that is the document that moves forward. What I do next is one of those things that, you know what, I probably could hand you out a sheet. We could go, you know, you're supposed to know this. Folks, the next item we are going to go over is we are going to go over the Constitution a little bit. You're going to do this in Gov. You're going to do an AP Gov. You might have done a little bit. Folks, it's the United States Constitution. If you get it several times in high school, that's okay. This is the absolute most powerful law of the land. You have a responsibility. For those of you who do not know, if you are ever arrested, ignorance is not a legal defense. I didn't know. That will not cover you. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, the United States Constitution is primarily broken into three parts, okay? Remember James Madison, separation of powers, 1, 2, 3, and checks and balances. Very quickly, what I'd like to do is highlight what the three branches are. This is kind of the proposal of James Madison. This is the Constitution. There are also 4 other provisions. These are much quicker. It's kind of like it does this, it does this, it does this. Yes, you will probably see some reference. Yes, they are important, but they're much more like Article 5 is about this. Article 6 is about this. Okay? These are the big ones. Ladies and gentlemen, the first thing we want to be aware of is, remember, the separation of powers is basically we have the ability to make law, enforce law, and interpret law. This is the part, honest to goodness, every one of you should know. I see Troy back there looking like he has a chart maybe from last year. That's wonderful too. When you look right here, ladies and gentlemen, this is the part I would expect every single person to know. Article 1 is, and folks, this is where people start getting mistakes. The first article is the legislature. It is not the executive. When the founding fathers made the Constitution, they actually believed that the making of law was the most important, not the president. Article 2 is the executive or the president, and you should be aware that throughout the year, this word or that word will be used for the president. The president is the executive, the president is the title. This is more of kind of what the job is, and this is the title we use. The judicial branch, their main job is to interpret law, and that is the Supreme Court. All right, let's go over the real basics. First of all, the Congress is broken into two parts. There's the House and the Senate. We've already done this part. This was the Great Compromise. The House of Representatives is by population. The Senate, basically, everybody gets two. The House of Representatives has a 2-year term. The Senate has a 6-year term. The House of Representatives has always, and I mean always, been elected by the people. This has always been the group where people had a vote. Remember, no taxation without representation. Senators originally were chosen by states. Every state got to pick a method, and some states it was picked by the governor, some states it was a state election, some states it was a caucus. For those of you who are concerned about that, that doesn't exist anymore. During the Progressive era, the 17th Amendment, that changes, and today we do elect senators. Okay. In order to be in the House of Representatives, you must have lived in the United States for 7 consecutive years. In order to be in the Senate, you must have lived in the United States for 9 consecutive years. And you must also be a resident of the particular state. Again, based on notation, the House starts money bills. Ladies and gentlemen, just to try to get you thinking, every once in a while I'm going to put check marks. The check marks are a reference to something that would be a check and a balance. The House of Representatives starts all money bills. They also are the ones who do the impeachment process. Key word with the Senate is you see the word approve. What you often see is senators are more of advisors. It's kind of like, remember in the old days there was an upper and a lower house, okay? Think of it this way, the president, these are the people who are supposed to give him advice. So the president, for example, appoints people to jobs, the Senate must approve them. We are going to get this. So again, check mark, check mark, check mark. The check mark is the president today picks a judge. The president today picks a secretary of state. The Senate cannot pick someone else, but they must say yes or no. All treaties, the president will make it, the Senate must approve it. With impeachment, remember folks, impeachment, what is the most important thing right here is understanding the word. What we're trying to do is get you to the idea of kind of what each branch does. Impeachment is the ability to remove an elected official. The House of Representatives basically starts an investigation. The Senate is the one who actually runs the removal, the trial. 3 American presidents have been impeached. No president has actually been removed. We have had presidents who have resigned so they wouldn't be removed, but technically no president has actually been removed from office. Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is kind of where, and I see at the back of the room I got 2 boys that have the list from last year, so that's an advantage. Like I said, there are some of you that in all honesty, you could probably go on Google and you could probably find a list. What I really think is important is that you kind of get an idea of what each group is doing. What I would want you to do right now is we'll do it in 1 of 2 ways. 1, identify examples, look for a pen, or 2, identify the whole thing. Folks, these are the types of things that will help you. There are going to be questions throughout the year that not ask you a direction, but it helps you to get to how things are happening. There are 13 powers of Congress. Here's the problem. This is the House, this is the Senate. Normally, remember that little cartoon, How Does a Bill Become a Law, that Saturday morning? Basically, something goes to the House and they make a proposal. If they could get a 50% vote, it goes to the Senate. If they could get a 50% vote, it goes to the President. The question is, make law. What items does Congress have the ability to make law on? That means everything that the 2 of them have to work together. There's a list of 13. At this point, let's go over them. Some of these are very important to know. Some of them, I will be honest, you're not going to see. There's a couple of these that are very, very, very important. They will come up on tests, not who has the power of. They will come up on tests because it is implied you're supposed to know it. Number 1 would be an example. Put a check mark. Check marks is checks and balances. Folks, this is one people get wrong all the time. I bet you if you went around school today, you would get some teachers who get it wrong. Congress has the power to declare war. That was a check, because the president has the power to fight the war. Do you see how checks and balances work, correct? Where is the problem? Does anybody know what is the last time the United States of America officially declared war? Ladies and gentlemen, the last official war of the United States of America was World War II. We have had hundreds of men die since then. Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, but there have never been actual declarations of war. Korea was a United Nations action. Vietnam, there was simply a congressional resolution that let the president fight a police action. In Iraq, the president just sort of used war powers. So please be aware. Under the Constitution, this is how you prevent the president from simply going off and being like a rogue cowboy, is that Congress has to give him approval. Number two. Number two is important. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know number two, nothing else makes sense. Because it doesn't make sense why we fought the revolution. Taxation. And originally, that's this right here. Originally, all taxes had to start in the House. Today, because senators are elected by the people, that has kind of changed a little bit. But the idea was the House, the representatives of the people, and that's kind of going back to the whole no taxation thing. The other thing I'm going to give you is kind of one of those old-time fashioned terms. I said this in my early class, and they looked at me like I was a crazy person. Folks, sometimes there are words that were once very popular and people forget. Do you guys, maybe I've said it here, do you guys know what GAMS are? Is someone made reference to GAMS? If we were talking about Keaton's GAMS.
Grandma.
No, his grandma would have been the one who would have taught it. Ladies and gentlemen, if you go back to maybe the 20s and 30s, a GAM was a slang word. This is not in your text. For nice legs.
My
You're welcome.
goodness, Keaton.
Ladies and gentlemen, what is the term that I want you to point out here? Under taxation, and this somewhere in the course of the year will probably pop up, it is referred to the power. Today, it doesn't make sense to people. If anything, people are like, well, so, wait. At this time in history, men had all the power. Why would they give reference to a woman? What did I say yesterday? Most people didn't like paper. They carried coins. Coins wear out your pants. Most men carried change purses. The purse is literally the little thing where people kept their coins. So whoever has taxation has control of the purse. If you prefer, control of the checkbook, control of the credit card. 3, regulation of commerce. Ladies and gentlemen, just so no one's freaked out, Article 1 is really big. Article 1 is huge, large, and that's what the Founding Fathers wanted. The legislature is supposed to be kind of the group that does most of the heavy lifting. They have the most responsibility. The other ones, in fact, the judicial branch, it almost looks like the Founding Fathers were sick of writing this, and they're like, yeah, we have a Supreme Court, we're done. I mean, literally, when we're done, the Article 1 is like this big, Article 2 is like this big, and literally, okay, we're done. It really looks like they spend all this time, we're going to make this great legislature. Okay, the president's important, and not. This sucks, I want to go home. I mean, that's really what it looks like. Number 4. Folks, number 4 is important. Remember Trevin versus Whedon? Number 4, Congress to create money. Now, if you think about it today, that's important. And why? Because we don't have Wisconsin money, do we? We don't have New York money. It is United States currency, and under the Constitution, the United States government can make it. Number 5 is really cool and simple, but I'll be honest, this is one of the ones I would not spend a lot of time with, I wouldn't worry about. Sometimes, you know what, the things that the Congress does, like when we talk about Congress being ineffective, it's when they have to deal with the really difficult issues, taxing. Number 5 is one that because honestly we would all agree, number 5 is called standard weights and measures. Ladies and gentlemen, in a country the size of the United States, If everybody did things differently, meaning the states, it would be confusing. Could you imagine if in some states stop signs were purple? Or what if you did it worse? You know the stop and go light? What if in the state of Maryland, red was go? Wouldn't that be a horrible problem though? Standard weights and measures means, and do you see how these are things that once you do them, people don't argue about? Does anyone know what was the last huge controversy? It was in the 1970s where America was dealing with like a measure issue. It was under Jimmy Carter.
Was it transferring to the metric?
In the 1970s, there was this big movement. So that, all of a sudden, this category no one ever cares about. But the movement was not make a standard that we're used to. It was to completely change everything to the system. And literally, Congress had voted to do it. But people began to get mad. And then all of a sudden, all these little research came out saying how much it was going to cost. Because think of everything that people have, like all the boxes of cereal and all the stuff, because you'd have to completely change everything. And the argument became, how much money is that going to go? Think of all the street signs. They would have to change them, right? Because how could we say that everything is going to be in kilometers, but half our signs still have miles? So literally it became, who's going to pay for that? And that's why they dropped it. And it's one of those things, when you think about going to metric, you don't think about, well, it's going to be expensive. Well, like, what? Here we go, number 6. Number 6 is an item I really do like. I think it's one of those things that we need to appreciate, the postal system. Thank you, Benjamin Franklin. Ladies and gentlemen, the postal system is under the federal government. As much as people lately have been attacking and complaining, because a lot of people do use more electronic, please understand, for hundreds of years, over 200, the postal system never collected a dime. The postal system is primarily self-funded. Yes, they are going through some organizational issues, but think about it. If you do not have a postal system, whenever you want to ship things, whenever you need to send things, it is going to be simply free enterprise, and you would therefore have to pay whatever the companies. Right now, UPS and Federal Express, they can't overcharge their rates because the Postal Service doesn't have to make money.
What do they make?
What?
Why do
The
we change
Postal
that?
Service's primary thing is they charge enough to cover their cost, their workers, and that type of thing.
So then why does anybody go to UPS?
What they did is they started, UPS focused on larger packages, and Express focuses on, originally, high-end service, overnight delivery, things like that. Of course, what is happening is, in the last few years, the Postal Service has kind of got, because people are wanting smaller government, so you attack things you don't understand. I ship stuff a lot. I do my eBay stuff. Our postal system works great. I mean, anybody in this room, you guys can ship stuff anywhere in the United States, and it's going to arrive most places, if you do priority mail, in 3 days, most places 2 days. First class mail is almost nothing. In fact, if you call Federal Express or UPS, they'll flat out tell you they can't beat first class mail. Priority and stuff, where people love Federal Express is the service they give you. They come to your door, they guarantee that your person will have it by a set time. But the problem is, in the last year, the Postal Service now has tracking to the door too. UPS, I will avoid, in case any of your parents work there, giving any derogatory comments. I think they originally had a niche of these very large items. For people who want to argue that they're cheaper, they are flat out wrong. For those, does anybody know, Federal Express has the largest, does anybody know this, airport in the world? Anybody know that? The largest airport in the world is owned by Federal Express. It's far bigger than any of the commercial ones. It's simply, and even and that's kind of one of the rackets they got into. In order to do their overnight delivery, they built this super airport, but now even like the Postal Service use it. So in a lot of ways, Federal Express and the Postal Service system work together, and UPS, of course, with their cute little brown trucks. Okay. So here we go. Number 7. Ladies and gentlemen, number 7 will come up a lot in the class. The ones that I say come up a lot, what you're really looking for right now is understanding this is Congress's authority. Folks, this is one our country's fighting about right now. If we turned on CNN or Fox, I would bet within an hour you'd probably hear something referenced. Immigration and naturalization. Do you all understand those are very different words? Immigration is, ladies and gentlemen, who can come to America? Who can stay, whatever. Naturalization is, how do you become an American? They are drastically different. Now think about it. Like, for example, with Mexicans who come to America, there's a lot of people who want to be more restrictive. There was talk of building a fence. You know, that is the idea that we want to keep people out. But that's the truth, right? That's what those people want. Remember, there was a time in our country, what was our immigration policy? Send us you're poor, you're weak. That's what the Statue of Liberty says. Where does America usually get more this way? History dictates when we are having fighting, economic problems, we are more likely to tell people to get the heck out. We want to take care of ourselves. When America is in a period of growth, where we want to expand, we generally open the doors because we want people, because people are workers. And let's be honest, today, if you talk immigration, what is the big difference people have? Generally today, America wants to bring well-educated immigrants to America. Like, for example, people who come from India with doctorate degrees. Our country generally does not restrict them. However, if you want to come and you are a poor person looking for a minimum wage job, the country gets a little bit more restrictive, which is very different than what it once was. Number 8, you need to know, flat out, you need to know, check mark, check mark, check mark, check mark, check mark. Congress has the power to override a presidential veto with a 2/3 vote. So ladies and gentlemen, and if you want, you can even write 1866. Can you imagine that? This document will be written in 1789. What does the document say? House, Senate, President. If the President vetoes something, the House and the Senate can pass it if 66% of each group vote yes. I just told you to write 1866. No presidential veto will ever be overridden until 1866. This was a power in the Constitution. It was a power given to Congress that until 1866 they will never use. And most of that was respect to the president. Ladies and gentlemen, that is one of the things I would help you or encourage you to do. Whether you call yourself a Republican or Democrat, as a nation, we need to have respect for the presidency. It does no good as a country if we are ripping on our own president. I don't care if it's Bush or if it's Obama. It does you no good. Next. Borrow money. Only, and some of you know our government's gotten really good at that. Sorry, but we have. Only the federal government can borrow money in the name of the United States. Okay? Number 10, check mark, check mark, check mark, check mark. Congress creates the lower court system. Folks, where's the check? The Congress basically creates courts, which of course then create or fill out the judicial branch. The courts, so the Congress has the job to make courts to basically help the judicial branch so that they don't get overburdened. Number 11, hey, here we come. Ladies and gentlemen, and you know what? I'm going to actually, wow, that was an intelligent question, man. Number 11, the federal government has the right to create or define and set punishment for crime. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of those things, is like when you watch TV shows, you know how you see it on the TV shows all the time when the police department fights with the FBI? Do you know what I'm talking about? There are state laws and federal laws. And occasionally the two groups fight over who gets the particular criminal. Normally that doesn't happen. Normally wherever the crime takes place, they get jurisdiction. Maybe a high profile case. And what is the benefit of two sets of laws? Sometimes the federal laws have a lower standard. Maybe it's a very difficult case. Sometimes maybe the federal law or the state law has a higher punishment. So what we want to be aware of, folks, is every time a crime is committed, there could be a federal and a state. And it also means, like when we later get to double jeopardy, there might be a way to charge a person twice. Because you can slightly call it a different crime. What they've done is they basically made, normally the two work together. There are examples, like for example, you know that whole Amber Alert, what kind of a crime is that? Kidnapping. Folks, normally when you get to a kidnapping case, because we don't want to be squabbling over jurisdiction, when someone is kidnapped, what is the greatest fear? The kid disappears, right? Any kidnapping case and bank robbery, the federal government, the FBI, because states can't cross into Illinois, in order to coordinate that, kidnapping and bank robberies, immediately the FBI has the ability to intervene, because that way they can deal with if the criminal is going back and forth between states and stuff. All right, let's go to your question about opium.
What was his question?
He wanted to know why they were made illegal. All right, let me give you a different sort of gist off that, or when. Was that your question?
Yeah, when, because that thing in the 30s made no sense. If, going back to that, if we...
Do you guys all know that opium was once sold in the Sears Roebuck catalog?
Yeah.
Do you realize you could, I mean, if you go back like the 1880s and find a Sears Roebuck catalog, you could literally buy opium through the mail. And I think there was a period of time you could buy cocaine.
Cocaine was in Coca-Cola.
Actually, that's a wives' tale. It's not true. It's a good try.
Really?
Yeah, it is. You can look it up. The cocoa word comes from cocoa. I've had people who've done the research at the end of the year project. Here we go. What was the issue I was getting to with the
Opium.
folks? Do you all understand that the United States government has a cocaine tax, an opium tax, yet the product is illegal? Do you guys understand that? Some of you are going to say. So the United States government says cocaine is illegal, but there's a tax on it. Ladies and gentlemen, if they discover that somebody has been selling illegal drugs, this gives them a way to go back and then garnish wages and more money and basically destroy their entire enterprise, because they also never pay taxes, which legally you can't pay, but it's a way to make sure that their money can't be hidden from an illegal activity. Number 12. Number 12 is a check mark. Check, 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 check. Provide and maintain the Army and the Navy. Notice the word provide and maintain. Folks, what that means is pay for and create. Provide and maintain. Notice the check marks are when we share. James Madison's idea is we want to share power. Half of it is with this group, half of it is with this group. So it is the Congress that literally buys the bullets. It is the Congress that buys the new weapons. It is Congress that gives the approval to design some new proposal, a new plan. Somebody else is going to get to do the fighting and the ordering. And ladies and gentlemen, number 13. Number 13 is another one that I would actually put down, make sure you understand pretty well. Number 13 of all of them is the one I would know by number. It's the last one. It is known as the necessary and proper clause. Number 13 is the necessary and proper clause. It is more commonly referred to as the elastic clause. This one will definitely come up throughout the year. Ladies and gentlemen, please understand, I am not trying to waste your time. I understand this can be a chart. I do think it's important that we explain them versus just give you a chart. This is our Constitution, and I guarantee many of these are going to be referenced throughout the year indirectly. The necessary and proper clause, and it will come up very quickly in the first unit, is known as the emergency clause. Ladies and gentlemen, in the United States Constitution, you know what? The Founding Fathers were so bright and intelligent that they basically said, we're going to miss something. We were not perfect. And the necessary and proper clause basically says, if something is necessary and proper to the well-being of the United States, Congress may add power. What you want to think of is this is often referred to as the rubber band clause, elastic. Folks, this is really what the idea is. Under normal day America, our government is supposed to be small. Under the elastic clause, in the case of, let's say a hurricane, we take on extra roles. Our government helps, and then you go back. In the case of something bigger like 9/11, the government expands. We deal with a crisis, and then we shrink. In the case of really bad, World War II, the government becomes immensely involved. The government begins to have greater power for survival. The elastic clause allows the government to take on responsibility in the case of emergency or crisis. And what is the idea supposed to be? That when the crisis is over, the power is returned. And if you're looking at where does the power come from, theoretically, you're therefore taking power from states to the federal level. Next, let's go to number 2, the executive. I sure hope, as we start, let's start with the very top. What do we need to be the President of the United States? You know, it should be that dream for every one of you. I mean, come on. You might as well set your sights at the top of the list. For those of you who want to be the President of the United States, you must be 35 years old, so you do need to wait a little bit. As far as I know, the next president from Elkhorn Area School District will be Zach Picknell. For those who know him, you might want to kiss up to him, so when he becomes president, he appoints you to a powerful position like myself, because I will be on the Supreme Court. But if you are not waiting for that like I am, well, you could find yourself, maybe you could be a campaign manager, or you could be an ambassador to something, but go Zach. I think it's 2000, for those of you keeping track, 2032, pick now. So, here we go. You must be 35, you must have lived in the United States for 14 consecutive years, and the big one. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd encourage anybody, go research it. I believe that for any other position in the United States of America, this is actually illegal. You must be natural born. The President of the United States must be native born. You know, this is that whole Arnold Schwarzenegger stupidity. In order to be the President, you must have been born an American.